Hello, my name is Jeffrey W. Ingram. I'm one of the hosts of the World Builders Anvil podcast, and I want to talk a little more about mapping today. Specifically on this idea of, people sometimes get obsessed with hyper-realistic maps for fantasy worlds, which is fine, especially the more naturalistic you want your world to look. The more knowledge you need to have about it, the more time and thought you'd have to put into a world. Now, as you can tell about looking at my world Gardul, the main world I like to work on, this is a map of the previous generation of the world of Gardul, the geography of it. And in the next iteration, there'll be some minor changes to try and make some things. There'll be many things that are set. And some things you might think like, hey, like something like this little square part of the world up here, can that really happen through plate tectonics? And one of the things that you can really do is overthink the power of nature. There are many things throughout the world where shapes come up that should not be able to exist in nature. Don't worry so much about that, I say, when you do mapping. However, you probably have an argument in a real world with erosion and plate tectonics. Something like this would be probably more difficult. There'd probably have to be several plate collisions happening to create sort of the way the mountain ranges are. There's some other reasons in my world why it is the way it is, but largely I chose some things aesthetically. I like this idea of what I call the arm of the world. So, in a way it's kind of European influence, but it's more cut off from the rest of the world than Europe would be. It's not connected to the big open steppes quite directly. You're sort of forced through some mountain ranges, which one helps create some isolation in this part of the world, which is something I wanted. I wanted an area sort of Amazonian rainforesty, and I thought what would be interesting would be some tough mountains to cross here. And so if the weather patterns would come up this way, it would strip off all of the weather, leaving this area more dry than the Sahara. But if the mountains were rigid enough, it would block the sands from growing. So it blocks the water from getting out to wetten it, but also it stops the desert from growing into the rainforest thing. So it's kind of the reverse of South America in that sense, where the smaller part of the continent here is trapped in rainforest and the other part is kind of wide open. Gardul has lots of steppes and open grasslands. And I wanted that. I wanted to make it very hard for agrarian societies to succeed, except up here and probably over here. Obviously, there'd be agrarian societies all along rivers because that's a good place to grow, except for this little strange oddity up here. And if you kind of look at the range up here, this was more aesthetically created, where I was thinking like this is sort of like a head of a dragon. This is the torso of a dragon here. Here's a dragon wing. Here's the tail of the dragon. Here's the dragon leg. And yeah, it's probably not very realistic, but that's a great thing with fictional is you can make stuff up. But now if you're a novice map maker and you really want to do it, so you're like, okay, I want a world, but I want it to be like sort of scientifically very plausible. I want something very naturalistically, but you know what? Maybe I don't want to spend all of the time to have to think about all of this stuff. I just want something quick, because maybe I think about the cultures like you do, and I'm less worried about the rigid rules of the geography. There's actually a program for that. And there's this program called Fractal Terrains 3, and it's by the same company that does campaign calligraphy. You can actually output the geography into there once you're done. And there are many different options here that are pretty cool. Under view, there's a couple I want to add in here, tools. And I definitely want to add in climate selector, because that kind of gives you the most power. Then down here, there's a few different ways to look at the map. You can look at the climate. This shows sort of where the weather goes. You can actually turn on, there is actually also very important is a color key, a legend. So this will kind of tell you where the deserts are, where the savannas are, where the different types of weather patterns show up on the world. And you can do lots of things here. You can actually make the world rougher, make it softer, but let's just start from a new world. You can create different ones. You can create a binary file to do one. I've never done that. I usually use synthetic worlds. You can do flat worlds or planar worlds as well. If you click next, you can actually say, what do you want the highest elevation to be? What do you want the lowest depth to be? What do you want the circumference of the planet to be? The world seed is important because just changing that one thing will change the world. Anyone who had the exact same settings as you did with the exact same world seed would generate the same world. And you can use all of these different methods. I honestly don't understand them, but my thing is you can kind of play around, pick one, and kind of play around until you get a geography you like. And this is really making a planet. So it's actually, you have to understand that right here, it's projecting a planet flat. So to really get an idea of what it looks like, I'll show you how to do that. But let's make it rougher. Rougher means it's a newer world. It's had less erosion. You can say, what's the percentage of the sea? Let's go to around, Earth's around 70%. So let's make it a little bit drier than the world sea-wise. Land size, we're going to kind of just pick right around there. We just want to see what we get. And when you set up the seed, you do it and it will literally generate a world for you. Right now we're looking at climate mode. Let's go to altitudes because that sort of shows where the elevations are, where your peaks are. You can come up to view. You can change the view of the thing, but I actually want to look for globe. Whoops. View globe. You actually can get a global view of what your world would look like from a globe. One of the problems is whenever you look at something through a projection, it's flattening a 3D thing. It's really generating a 3D product here. So the location of things like this right here is probably this part of the world right here where it kind of comes down near the bottom. But you can kind of rotate the world around and you can sort of make it whatever you want to. And then the neat thing on top of that is you can actually sit here and go, okay, let's raise up the land a little bit. Let's lower the land. You can do simple settings to make big changes. And once you start making the changes, that's when you start, let's make it a wetter world. This, you don't really see it here, but the water level you can kind of look at there. Climate changes based off of the wetness. It actually generates the stuff for you. So you can have a lot of detail of your world, where the water patterns are, where your altitudes are, what the temperatures look like. Obviously, this must be the equator because look at where the dark spots are. So somewhere around here is probably where your hurricanes form. They kind of go up this way. So this place gets plastered with hurricanes. Down here in the southern hemisphere, they'd be generated somewhere, around here, and this part might get really slammed with nasty storms. Nasty storms would probably come in over around here, just based off of the way worlds rotate. Up here it gets colder. You can kind of see where the cold is. You can see where the warm is. It gives you a lot of detail very quickly. If you have to create a lot of worlds or you want a lot of detail, this is a great map. And the other thing I like too is you can actually ultimately, you can go put in symbols for your world. You can do whatever you want to customize this world to make it the way you want it. It doesn't make great maps. But you can actually export and import into Campaign Cartographer to add more detail, to add in your cities and your human type stuff. But you can literally paint a world with this, and it will sort of make changes mathematically based off of what you're inputting to it. So if you're telling it to paint some more climate here, you go into tools, you say, I want to go paint a crater. Let me go paint a crater right here. Boom, there's a big explosion right here. And it doesn't only adjust the area that you're at, it will adjust the areas around it too, based off of the algorithms that you chose for it. So it's a very cool piece of software. Once you're done, you can save it like anything else. Or like I said, you can export it into a few different formats. I don't know what all of these different formats do. I don't use them. Or you can save a Campaign Cartographer file, which is typically what I use it for. You sort of go, okay, I want a overview of the world, or I only want the coastlines, and I just want to take the coastlines and sort of redo it. But it's just a cool way to get a hyper-realistic world very quickly without having to spend your life to build it. So if you're not really picky on how you want it to look, but you want something that's really realistic, that, you know, really plays into the way a world would look, you can do that. And you can even look at it in different ways too. I believe you can change the settings to be able to look at this through different projections as well too. So I hope this has been a useful, quick little video for you guys. If you're looking for a quick way to generate maps and you're sick of doing it yourself and you want realism, I would highly suggest you pick up Fractal Terrain 3. I'll put a link down below.